Good morning, I'm Andrew Bloch and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 to 9 o'clock to help small businesses. If you've got any questions, you can ask them in the comment section of the live feed. If you need any more advice, you can join the official Intro QuickBooks SMB community group, which is on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During this live session, we're going to be running a poll, so please do engage with it. And at the end, I will reveal the results. And if you're on TikTok, check out the Be Your Own Boss competition. You can pitch a new business idea, you can win investment, mentorship, and business advice to help make it a reality. Just tag the hashtag Be Your Own Boss to enter. I'm going to be speaking about that a little bit later. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the judges, and I'd love to tell you a little bit more about it. But before I do, I'm going to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my journey of becoming my own boss, and some of the learnings that I've picked up along the way. So, as I said, my name's Andrew Bloch. I'm a PR expert, and I started my career in PR, about 25 years ago. I got into the industry via quite a traditional route, which was via doing a work placement, and I found myself an agency called Lynn Franks PR, very famous agency at the time, most famous actually for being the agency that Absolutely Fabulous was based on. And I stayed with that agency for 5 years, working on various different sports and entertainment businesses, having a great time. And 5 years in, the former MD of that company, who had left after a few years of my time there, approached me and said, I think we should set up our own PR agency. And my gut instinct was that I just didn't feel ready. I had an okay amount of experience, but I was still learning day by day. I was still really enjoying what I was doing. I was happy with what I was being paid. But immediately I sort of loved this idea of being my own boss and being in control of something. But as I said, I just didn't feel ready. So the words that he said to me will always sort of ring in my ears, and I think they're so true. He said, "You will never feel ready," and for me, it was a really valuable piece of advice. And I don't think anyone ever feels ready. There is never a good time to go out on your own, or never feels like a good time. Maybe that's a fear of change. There's always different circumstances going on in your life. Maybe you've got a house to pay for, you've just had kids, you're happy what you're doing, but you have to make that leap. And I did, and I've never ever looked back. So in September 2000, we set up a PR agency called Frank. We grew it into one of the most successful, most well-known PR agencies in the UK. And there was various journeys along the way. And of course, when I started, I was the boss of no one. There was 3 of us sat around a desk, no clients, no staff. But slowly and gradually we built the business. And the next sort of milestone for me came about 7 years into the business, when we were approached by an Australian marketing conglomerate who wanted to buy us. And it was an amazing opportunity, from a financial perspective, life-changing, but in terms of, more importantly, where we would be able to take the company, the growth opportunities, it was too good an opportunity to turn down. And so we sold the business, 100% of the business, to this company 7 years in. And we still felt we had so much room to grow and so many opportunities. And I think the thing that I learned from selling the business and what made it a successful deal was the people that bought us realized that when you found your own business, it's like your baby. There's such a strong emotional connection to your business, and a successful acquirer never wants you to lose that feeling. And what was amazing for us was they let us feel like we still owned the company. And I never felt like I was working for somebody else. Yes, we had to report in to shareholders, and we had to submit figures and do all the things you have to do when you have someone that oversees you. But in terms of the day-to-day running of the business, they just let us get on with that. And then 4 years into that process, we completed what was called an earn-out, and theoretically at that point we could have walked away from the business. They didn't want us to walk away from the business, so they offered us a percentage of the business back. So once again, I found myself in a position where I still felt this emotional connection. I still wanted to be there. Fast forwarding to this time last year, Frank was 20 years old, and I was still really enjoying myself, but the company was in a good place. There was a fantastic team beneath me, alongside me, great clients, we're doing great work, and I just felt that it's a really difficult thing to explain. It definitely wasn't boredom or anything like that, but I felt I wanted to push myself to try something new, do something different. So it was a process that took me about 2 years to come to the realization that I really wanted to do it. And I had this conversation with my co-founder and other directors, and agreed that I was going to step back from the day-to-day side of doing things and become a non-exec for Frank, still a shareholder, but remove that day-to-day stuff. And then I set up my own consultancy, and it was quite a scary thing. Sort of, yes, I had 25 years of experience behind me, but yet again, I found myself in a position where I didn't have any clients, didn't have any sort of future in terms of what I was going to do, but I built a consultancy. And I think the other process that I went through during that period was thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And sometimes when you go through that process, it might feel like quite a sort of negative starting off point, but it just helps you realize that sometimes you've just got to give things a go. And for me, it was about having a work-life balance, being able to enjoy everything that I'd worked so hard to achieve over the years, but being able to take on my own direction and challenge myself. And my consultancy now is a combination of marketing and PR consultancy, M&A advisory. I sit on the board of several different companies. And I've also been able to use that time to give back a bit and get involved with organisations like the Prince's Trust, the School of Marketing, the School of Communication Arts, Big Community Records, and recently have come on board alongside Intro QuickBooks and Simon Squibb at the Purposeful Project to launch the TikTok search for the next great entrepreneur. And Simon, who is the founder of the Purposeful Project, we've been speaking for many months about the challenge of Generation Z, and how it's so difficult to get a job, and why now is the best time that you could possibly go out and be your own boss. But we realized that to reach the right audience and to get the best quality of responses from the broadest amount of people, we needed to find a way to reach them that they would relate to and break down some of the barriers that exist in society when it comes to starting out on your own. So we approached TikTok, had a great chat with them, and immediately they loved the idea. They loved the concept of TikTok being a platform where entrepreneurial activity can happen. It's no longer just about dancing and jokes and pranks. This is a great platform to learn. So the Be Your Own Boss competition allows people to go onto the platform, submit a video. There's a panel of judges, of which I'm one. There's some other great entrepreneurs, which I'm privileged to sit alongside, people like Ben Francis, who founded Gymshark, Justine Roberts, who founded Mumsnet, Jess Butcher, who's a tech entrepreneur that founded Blipper, Simon Squibb, the founder of Purposeful Project, and there's 12 of us, and we're going to go out and we're going to find someone, give them £5,000 to get them on their feet, but more importantly, give them the mentorship and advice and support they need throughout their journey. So that was sort of a whistle-stop tour of, I guess, how I became my own boss. But what I really wanted to do was go into some of the questions and hopefully be able to answer them in a way that gives you a bit of advice and useful information. So I'm going to get straight on into it. The first question is from Brooke. It's come through on Instagram direct message. I've always wanted to run my own business, but I've never really had an idea for one that I get excited about. Any advice on brainstorming ideas and finding that spark? It's a good question. I mean, I think it's probably fair to say you've got to do something that you're passionate about, that you get excited about, but also something that's realistic. I think one of the benefits of being your own boss is, we're not talking about starting your own airline and having to raise, hundreds of millions of pounds to get off the ground. Starting your own business doesn't necessarily cost a great deal of money, but you have to find something that you're interested in about. I can't really tell you what that is, but the areas and the things that you're passionate about. So look at them, see what's on the market, what sort of things are out there. I would say there's no such thing as a new idea. It's just a twist on how you adapt an existing idea. So look at maybe services you use, products you buy, and think about, if it was you, what would you do to make it different? How could you make it better? How could you create a space in the market? And hopefully that will give you that sort of inspiration to find that spark. Everyone gets their inspiration in different ways. I get mine from being online and researching and reading and following interesting people. Others get it from going out into art galleries, shops, museums. When you've got the space that you're interested in, try and immerse yourself in that space, both physically and online, and hopefully that will give you that spark and give you that idea. But you don't need to think massive to begin with. You can think small, get something off the ground and build it from there. Next question is from Nathan on Twitter, direct message. What are the key things to land in an elevator pitch? The key thing is being succinct. People have very, very short attention spans, arguably shorter than ever. You have to be able to get across what you're doing and what your USP is. And the USP is the most important thing. That's what stands you out. Obviously, depending on who your elevator pitch is to, you might want to deliver a certain type of message and you need to adapt it depending on the audience. But show them what's different, explain succinctly what it's about. Sometimes comparing what you're doing to something else helps land it in people's minds. So, you see a lot of elevator pitches that say, we are the Uber of this, we are the Deliveroo of that. It's not a bad way of doing it. It helps people sort of in their minds figure out your place. But also try and get across, if you can, the purpose of what you're doing. And I think every entrepreneur needs to have a purpose in terms of what they're doing. And that's really the passion and the reason for doing something. So try and communicate that as well within your pitch. But practice it time and time again. Try it on your girlfriend, try it on your mum, make sure it lands, and keep refining it. A pitch shouldn't be the same every single time. Listen to the audience, listen to the questions they come, and often the questions they ask are the bits that you should have landed in the pitch in the first place that they're not quite clear on, and keep adapting and refining that pitch till you can do it with your eyes closed. Jennifer on Facebook Messenger. What was the hardest thing to pick up or learn while you're growing your business? If you have no experience building teams, hiring people, etc., I imagine that side can be quite tricky. It's a great question. I'm not sure there was one hardest thing I had to pick up. Generally every day was a new experience because I was dealing with things that I'd never dealt with before. I've always been one to just go on intuition and gut feel. So when it comes to things like building teams and hiring people, and it always felt relatively natural to me, even though I'd not necessarily done it before. But it's also important to surround yourself with advice using, the word mentorship is used fairly broadly, but there would be people in my career that I looked up to, people that I'd grown up with in business, and I'd never be afraid to pick people's brains, get their thoughts. I think what you find, perhaps for me, one of the biggest and best surprises when I started my own business is how much people want to help you. And They really, really do. And I think especially in your first year, you're almost overwhelmed with the generosity of others who just want to help you on your journey. So never be afraid to ask for advice, ask for a favor, ask for a contact. And to be honest, it doesn't ever really stop. I think there's an amazing entrepreneurial community out there who all relate to one another. And, generally, whenever I've needed something, needed some help, needed to talk to someone, even if it's someone I don't know, I've never really got knocked back from that. And I always try and do the same back. I think it's a reciprocal thing. So you pick it up, you learn along the way, you make mistakes. I know it's a complete cliche that you will hear everyone say, but you do make mistakes. And I think the key to those mistakes is learning from them. And, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And trust me, I made plenty of mistakes in my career, but you do learn from them, and you mustn't be scared to make mistakes. I think to be an entrepreneur, to be your own boss, you have to take risks, and the more risks you take, the luckier you get. Obviously, calculated risks. It's not about kind of just wanton abandon and doing anything you feel like. But if you don't adapt your business, keep changing, you're never going to evolve. So in order to do that, there is a level of risk, and often that risk is just the fact that you've never done it before, so you don't know if it's going to work, but you can't be afraid of the unknown. So next question, Suleiman on Instagram DM. In your opinion, what personal qualities should a good business leader have or try to develop? I mean, it is a personal question, because I think you ask 10 people, they give you 10 different answers. I can speak in terms of me personally. I think, first of all, you need to, it's hard, it's a good question. I think you need to be empathetic to the people that you work with, and you need to be firm but fair. I've always tried to develop people that have worked for me in a meritocratic sort of way. I don't think you should treat everyone the same. You need to make sure that you bring people on the journey who have the most talent and help them rise to the top. If someone isn't good enough, you have to make some tough decisions. You can't treat people the same. I think you have to have a general all-round sense of being able to relate to other people. Whatever you're doing, essentially we're all salespeople, in my opinion. So to be a good salesperson, whether that's selling yourself, selling your company, whatever it might be, you have to be able to do that. And every business needs a hustler. You have to be able to hustle to keep the business moving forward. So that's a really important skill. I think first and foremost, I've always tried to be fair as a boss. It doesn't mean that you're always nice. You have to make the difficult decisions. But if you're fair and you treat people as you would like to be treated yourself, it's never stood me wrong in terms of what I'm doing. So as I said, it's a difficult question because there's so many different personal qualities that make up a great leader, and there's so many different types of business leaders. But I've always tried to develop my skills based on how it's going. And if I sort of feel that I'm not going in the right direction, things aren't going my way, I sit, question why, and then try and adapt my style. But you can only really be your true self. You just have to be the best version of your true self that you can be. Courtney on Twitter DM. Did you have a mentor when starting your own business? What was the best advice they gave you? I think I had lots of mentors, really. My business partner, Graham, has been a mentor to me throughout my career, really. And I think I always really enjoyed having someone by my side, and we were always quite complementary in terms of our skill sets. So I was good at the things he wasn't, and vice versa. And we were always quite open with each other. So he was definitely a mentor for me. I mean, my mum and dad, neither of them sort of in the career that I was in, but have had a massive impact on me. My mum, probably in a very sort of mum-like encouragement way, and nice for someone to sort of tell you that they're proud of you, which means everything to me. And my dad, I think more from the work ethic perspective. I mean, he was without a doubt the first person to say to me, you should be working for yourself. I mean, as soon as he saw that I was in a career I was enjoying and progressing in, he was the first person to say, don't waste your time working for someone else, do it yourself. But watching him as I grew up, he was such a hard worker and had such a great work ethic, but also a great sort of balancer of how to combine, life and work, which is so important. And then, I've been fortunate enough to work with so many great business people and clients along the way. Lord Sugar, who's been a client of mine for 20 years, and I've advised him and acted as his spokesperson. I mean, I've learned so much from him in terms of entrepreneurship, how to deal with people, a multitude of different things. And there's been, so many other clients that you learn from observing and watching other great business people and seeing how they do stuff. And again, sort of doing it in your own style, but taking the learnings from them. And I'm not sure there's ever been a single best piece of advice. I think there's certain things people say to you along the way that stick in your head and stay with you, and when you have moments of doubt, you sort of think back to that. But I don't think there's necessarily been that one thing that's been my guiding light throughout my career. It's multiple things from multiple people, and sometimes it's not via a mentor, it's from listening to podcasts, reading articles about other business people, reading autobiographies of successful business people. You kind of pick things up, and I think when you read these sort of things, you always put them through the filter of what's going through your own head and think how you can apply it to yourself. And that's something I've always done almost subconsciously throughout my career. Shelley on Instagram DM. If you have a bit of a complicated business story and message, it can often turn people off. Any tips on how to refresh your brand messaging? What should we approach first? It's a good question. And obviously the answer is to try and simplify your message. I think one of the things when you run a business is every single small detail behind that business. And there's almost like this urge to tell everyone everything. What you have to do is step away from the inside workings of your business and try and figure out what's the one thing we want to say. And really it should be one thing. If you try to say too many different things, it becomes confusing. So in terms of refreshing your brand messaging and what approach you should take, sometimes you need to take external advice because someone will look at something fresh. They won't have all the baggage. They won't have all the sort of reasons why something won't work. And you need to find that clarity in terms of what's the thing you want to get across. If there's one takeout that you want your customers, your consumers, your audience to have, what would that be? And then, of course, you can drill down into further messaging, but you have to hook people in and get them interested. And to do that, it has to be easy. And however complicated your business is, it still has to be simplified. And often the answer to that is, what does it allow you to do? If you think about technology brands and how they communicate, technology has become more and more complicated from a product perspective over the years, but the way that you communicate that is simpler and simpler. So if you think of, like a mobile phone, they're not talking about all of the tech within the product, they're talking about what that technology allows you to do. So maybe one way to take your complicated business story and your message is not to talk about how you do it, but what the end result is. So if you're Intuit QuickBooks, it's about making business simple. They're not talking about everything that they're doing. They're talking about the end result of what happens if you use their product. And that's a good lesson in how to communicate with clarity, because as a business owner, you think, okay, I need Intuit QuickBooks. Going to make it really, really simple for all my small business needs. Hamid on Facebook Messenger. I run a small restaurant business that went delivery through lockdown. as people rush back to the high street, there's a big opportunity for us, but also a lot of competition. How do you create local buzz and get an edge over our competitors? Another good question. I think, you know, there's obviously hundreds and hundreds of restaurants. You want to build your reputation through being good value for money, being great product, being a great place to hang out. Use the reviews that you're getting online to help communicate that. Put it in the store windows, in the restaurant windows. Do local marketing. There'll be a catchment area that you've got of a mile or two that people will travel to your restaurant. So think about, you know, it doesn't all have to be digital, old school marketing, promotional flyers, discounts, encouraging people to come in, promotions that welcome people back. Keep it fresh with product of the week, special offers, give people reasons to keep coming back into the restaurant and encourage them. You know, down to a level even where you've got someone outside the shop just talking, giving out samples, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know what type of restaurant you are, so maybe not all of that is applicable, but just think about the basics. And people are excited to go into restaurants. We're still in that novelty phase where we, you know, haven't been to many restaurants over the last year or two. So remind people how great it is to be back. Okay, we're starting to run out of time. I'm going to do one more question. Cam on Instagram DM. I can get really flustered when I'm giving speeches or need to land something. Any tips on managing nerves and emotions when you're pitching? Practice. The more that you do, the better you will get. I also still get nervous when I give speeches or have to land something. It's good to be nervous. You have to take that energy and use it positively. But the more you practice, the more rehearsed you are, the more confident you're going to be going into it. And the more that you do, the better you'll get. So just relax, prepare, make some bullet points. You know, worst comes to the worst, you use those notes. But practice makes perfect, as they say. So I am now going to go to the poll results. And the question that we asked you is, do you know what your business's USP is, unique selling point? 50% of you said yes, 50% answered no. So kind of right down the middle on that one. You need to know what your business's USP is. If you don't and you can't articulate it, how's anyone else going to know? And if you don't think your business has a USP, then try and find one. So that is going to be your point of difference, what levels you up from your competition. So I'm afraid that is all we've got time for. It went quickly for me, at least. Hopefully it did for you. So thanks for tuning in today. If you've got any questions, please get in touch with the QuickBooks support team. If you want to contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just search my name or go to my website, andrewbloch.co.uk. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Jenna Davis from the I Am Hub. Tune in and you can find out how to regain confidence and master your pitching and communication skills. So Cam, probably that's one for you to listen in. She'll give you much better advice than I just have. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. And don't forget the Be Your Own Boss competition. It really is amazing. It's had 150 million views on the Be Your Own Boss hashtag so far, which is only in the last week, and it's quite staggering to show the interest that's there. But you can pitch your new business idea to myself and the other judges. You could win £5,000 worth of investment, mentorship, business advice, a fantastic prize. So I would encourage you to have a look at that and to enter, tell your friends. So that's all, I'm afraid. I've really enjoyed answering your questions this morning. I hope you've enjoyed it too. I will leave you to be productive and have a great day. Thank you very, very much.